What is up, guys? Happy Wednesday. We're in the new year, and it is a good one so far. Hoping for good things for you and your life right now. One question for you. You may have heard this before. If you're new here, are you a photographer? Are you a creative professional, videographer, business person, entrepreneur, etc.? Do you make money off of what you make, if you will? If you are looking for free education that was high quality, down to earth, from a guy who you're already listening to and other experts who you're already listening to if you subscribe to this podcast, what if you get that for free right now? You can join our Facebook group and you can go get all of our content for free workshops, SEO, branding, marketing, standing out in your market, crushing the game, Instagram growth. Every Friday, we do a little thing together. It's super fun to help push those posts into the Explore page. We do it as a group. Imagine Instagram pods, but with a huge Facebook group. So really, really fun. Would enjoy you to go join that. TOGFB.com. We'll get you there to the link. Come join. It's free. Watch all the content. Hang out. Down to earth. Really fun place to be. Our guest today is Mike Villa, the owner of Villa Visuals out of California. He's a crazy creative. I've loved his work for a few years, ever since I saw him shoot with Benj Heish. And I was like, this guy just seems cool. And I love the balance of he works in the luxury space, but with very colorful, punchy photos. And so we talked a little bit about that and how photographers can branch into commercial video to help make some extra money during this crazy year. So definitely a must listen to. Without any further ado, here's Mike Villa. Mike, I am so pumped to have you on the podcast. It's been a long time coming. I've been a long-time stalker. I think maybe 2 or 3 years. You worked a wedding, correct me if I'm wrong, with Benj Heish a few years back.
Yeah. It was probably 3 years ago. Did just a quick little elopement together. Fun fact, he was also my wedding photographer.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay. That's really cool.
So,
that is super cool.
Needless to say, I'm kind of a fan of him.
That's awesome. So he's been on the podcast. He's a good buddy, and I was like, oh, let me check out this person's work. And now I feel like tags are that every post, everybody has 27 tags on it, but it was just one. I was like, oh, let's check out this, Villa Visuals, and I just loved your work because it was you're in California, but it's a little more colorful and fun and punchy than California, and I was just a big fan, and I was like, okay, done. I'm going to follow this guy. And I've still been following you for a while, so it's worked out. And that continues to be the case to where you're one of those photographers that and video guys who are good at everything. And so I'm just here to bring you on the podcast and tell you how much I hate you. So that's basically the deal.
I'm glad I give that appearance. Thanks. That's always super flattering to hear. Man, I love all of it. So I try everything. I'm constantly experimenting and always trying to find ways to improve my craft and new aspects of it. And so I don't know if I'm good at everything, but I certainly try everything. And, I try to surround myself by people who are good at a variety of things.
That's awesome, man. Well, seriously, it's just, it's really refreshing and cool. And you're one of the other, I would say primarily wedding centric people that also does a lot of, at least pre-COVID, a lot of event work, a lot of corporate work. Yeah. And I just kind of gotten into that over the last few years living in DC, you photograph a bride and then she's at a consultant firm or something like that. And she's like, hey, do you want to come shoot? You've done a bunch of these, a brand activation. And we're like, okay, sure. And, and it's fun, easy money on a Tuesday afternoon,
Exactly,
with a unlimited budget usually. And you're like, okay, great. So I thought that was cool. So tell me a little bit about you, man. What's your story like? Where in California are you? How long have you been shooting? And what does work life look like for you sans COVID? How many weddings or how much work do you actually take? What's that look like for you?
Well, I've been shooting now for about 10 years. This was my 10th year full-time professional.
That's awesome.
I have no other life skills to speak of. So all I got is a camera and I enjoy it. And I originally went to Biola University, which is out here in Southern California. It's a tiny little university, and I was like, I'm going to become a documentary filmmaker. And so I joined in their journalism program because that seemed better, like a better idea than their film program, which now looking back on it, like, of course it wasn't video. Of course it was all photo. But anyway, they described their program as like, oh yeah, it's multimedia and video and photo. And like, no, dude, it was straight photojournalism. And
okay.
At first I was like, not really about it. And then I just kept getting more and more assignments to take photos and started enjoying it more and more. And then, suddenly people were paying me to take pictures, and I was like failing my photojournalism classes because I was out shooting things for money. And I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right.
That's awesome.
Anyway, that's kind of how I started. And just like right off the bat, I remember just like random photojournalists would come into our classes and speak. And it was like, yeah, those wedding photographers, they make a ton of money, but man, what sellouts. And I was just thinking like, wow, that sounds great. And so I was like this little college kid who just emailed every wedding photographer I could find that was local. And eventually like a couple people for whatever reason decided to take a chance on me and be like, yeah, sure, come shadow me at a wedding. And like, that was it. And I just started shooting immediately in college and like really dove headfirst into it. And so over the years, I've definitely have almost always come back to weddings. I've always come back to weddings. Let me say that. But I've also done a few like random other stints. For a few years, I did mostly travel and editorial photography, traveled to over 40 countries doing that in like 30 states. Wow. And then for a little bit, I was working at Motor Trend doing video production for like all their automotive content. And so I've bounced around a little bit. And over the years, I think I've found that I love weddings and I'll always come back to weddings, but I also will always want to do something else as well. You know, I like the variety. I like mixing it up. Just kind of enjoy all of it. And so there have been a few years where like I've done almost only weddings or almost only commercial. And those are the years that have been personally the like least fulfilling or hardest for me. Just because I really enjoy the variety that comes with what we do.
Yeah, no, there's definitely something to, you know, like at least last year, I felt like it's like my busiest year where you're shooting as many weddings as you probably should, probably too many anyway.
Yeah.
And then in like February, a big corporate client came in and said, hey, here's what we want from you. Basically, you can charge us whatever you want, but it's going to be a lot. And I shouldn't have said yes, but of course, like the price and the gig sounds cool. You know, the client was really cool. And I was like, and I'd worked with them before, but this is like my biggest thing with them, and it was a big opportunity, and I was like, sure. And it was like the maxed out year of like, okay, shoot a wedding on Sunday, fly out Monday morning, shoot Tuesday, Wednesday, deliver Tuesday and Wednesday's photos immediately, you know, whatever, you know how it is. And then fly out Wednesday night, try and work on wedding stuff. Friday, have another wedding. Saturday, you know, it was like, oh man, insane. Dude. And you know, it was just like absolute bonkers. But at the same time, I enjoyed it, you know, because at least for me, it's like another opportunity to go see a place or get on a plane or meet a new person or try a new coffee shop. Like, I you know, maybe I'll feel content when I've tried every coffee shop or when I've tried every pizza or something like that.
Yeah,
you know?
I feel you on that.
that's the best part of this job. I feel like, you know, back to the people saying that wedding photographers are sellouts. I'm like, sounds great.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Like what? I can make money doing what I love. Yeah, of course. It sounds wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's for me. I have this. I talk about this all the time on the podcast, but I feel like you'll get this with me. It's like, at least I'm going to own this for you, but maybe you can tell me I'm wrong. Mike Villa is not a celebrity, but he does live in California. No, but he makes a sustainable, possibly even great living doing 95% of what he likes doing. And that's pretty awesome. That's more than we could say for anybody else, like, and that's what, at least for me, that's my goal. Is like, if I can be like 80% shooting what I want to shoot, I'll shoot 20% of stuff that I'm like, okay, the check is good, or, oh, we need that, or maybe it's February and not a lot's coming in, and man, I get to do this rather than something else.
Yep.
Sold.
Yeah.
And I can do it without being a celebrity, like I don't have 10,000 followers, or anything like that. And, like we're not bench Heish, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
And we can't start a Patreon and later that day have 300 patrons. But, which is cool. We love him. But, like it still works out. Yeah. And I think people, my whole vibe is that people like, they undersell that.
Yeah.
They see the dream. And I'm like, guys, like, as far as I know, I feel like Mike's living the dream. I'm living the dream. I'm very happy. Like, I have a nice looking office and a house we own in the city my wife and I love, and we have a cat, and we make more than we spend.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that? Have you ever thought about that kind of stuff? And then like, have your goals changed over the last 10 years? Like 10 years ago, did you want to make $1 million, or you want to make $100,000, or like, what's that look like? And what's that look like for you going forward, as a guy who's done it for so long?
Yeah. It's kind of funny because I almost go in the opposite direction now. Whereas like, I don't know, a few years ago, like I was 100% that described exactly how I felt. And now I'm like, I mean, I don't own a house. It's California. No way, dude.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, okay, well, what do I need to do to own a house? And so I'm actually, I think at least the past couple of years, and especially this year, where I've had a lot of time to think about different ways to try to make money. Like I find myself more financially and long-term oriented this year, mostly because like, I see a lot of people, a lot of my friends who I've made at the very beginning of shooting weddings are starting to kind of age out of the wedding business. Right. Like, I absolutely know a couple amazing photographers who are like 60 and still crushing it and absolutely just killing the game. But I mean, at a certain point, like if everything is exactly the same, right? Like these two photographers take the exact same photos and they are the exact same price point and everything. Like, guess what? 30-year-old bride's going to go with the 30-year-old. They're not going to go with the 50-year-old. Like that's usually that if all else being equal, you're going to choose the person who is most similar to you. And, there's more 20 to 30-year-olds getting married than 50 to 60-year-olds. And so, a lot of my conversations this year with a lot of people who are not a lot older than I am, maybe like mid to late 30s they're all starting to prep to like long-term prep their end games and be like, okay, how do I exit this? What's next for me? And so I think hopefully I have a long way to go for that. But between that and COVID of like, weddings are not nearly as much a thing as they were. And so just has me thinking like longer term in terms of I've had all this time doing what I love, making a great living with it. And like, doing the things I enjoy. And you're totally right. I feel super blessed to have been doing that and super blessed to continue doing that. But it does, I think last year I got burnt out and this year is like iffy. Right. And so those two things have me thinking like, what else exists in life besides photography? Like, not that I'm about to, just throw in the camera anytime soon. I think I'll always be taking photos. And like I said, I'll probably always come back to weddings. I can't see myself ever not doing weddings in some capacity. Right. But it definitely has me thinking like, well, what else is out there, in terms of like, cool, let's try and play with investment things, or like, let's even just within photography and video. Like I've been pushing video huge this year and last year. And there's several different reasons for that, but even like within that, that's just been, I've kind of been looking forward to some sort of change, and I'm not sure what that looks like. I don't know. That was a terrible answer, but
no,
I
it's all good.
Just like, it is kind of the dream, but there's always more,
totally.
The most successful and most like, impactful people for me are the ones who keep looking forward.
Yeah, no, totally. A buddy of mine, ironically, who's a photojournalist, and I don't know if this is like a real phrase, but he's the one who told it to me. He says, we're always chasing the dragon.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like,
that's how I always
we could
feel.
have,
Yeah.
my wife hates it because she'll be like, hey, you know, I'll be like, yeah, I'm disappointed because, especially with COVID, right? So I'm like, I didn't get to do this. I didn't get to launch that. I didn't get to do this. Or we had really good plans for that. And, you know, and even before COVID, I would say those things and she'd be like, yeah, but you did this and you did that and you were so this and like, you know, you won this contest or whatever, all these things. And it's funny because it's like, oh yeah, okay, like so something she makes me do every year is like a very corporate thing, but it's like at the end of the year I'll write down, even this year, my 2020 wins.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, what were the wins in our company? Yeah.
You know, both of those wins. Yeah.
I love it. I'd be like, the Lakers won. That was cool to watch. Thanks, LeBron. You know, so yeah, it's like, you know, she'll make me do that, but it's like I need that because it's like, oh, look at what you did do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's another weird thing too, where it's like this, I think when things start getting easy, you know, when things start getting like predictable, you know, it's no longer, obviously it's no longer hard, but it's like, yeah, like, okay, I'm not getting like achievement, you know, fulfillment out of
you
this.
don't have that rush.
Like that.
You're not pushing to make it happen.
Yeah. I think about that all the time too, with the photographers aging out. Like you've probably heard, you know, Sam Hurd, he's East Coast over here. Yeah. So he shot my wedding. So there's
all right, there you go.
Our
celebrity wedding photographers.
Exactly. Those are our buddies.
Awesome.
Man, we need to have a podcast with all four of us. So, but yeah, and all of our Zoom setups would look really good. But we, you know, something I talked to him about is he believes, you know, as well that like eventually people can age out. Yeah. Like, we can work and hopefully your knees don't give out, you know, after 500 10-hour days. Wedding days, but like, yeah, like, do you think a couple will want to buy from a 40-year-old or whatever?
Yeah.
And so something I'm actually, at least to me, being in my 30s, I'm like planning my end game, if you will.
Yeah.
So I had to think like, okay, what do I need to save now, you know, to potentially have retirement and be a proper adult and all these things.
Yeah.
And it's kind of accelerated. And I just set this up in an app, so it's not like foolproof, of course. And we could have another pandemic, but my plan, I don't want to jinx this. My plan, I'm saying this right now to Mike via Villa. I haven't said this in the podcast at all. My plan is to work as hard as I can and still have as much fun as I think is appropriate within safety guidelines, of course, the next few years. But my goal is to not have to work by 45, which for me is 14 years from now.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
And so that's like I could work, could do other stuff. During that time, I could transition to other financial things. For sure. You know, but like, that's my safety valve. Like, okay, if ish is going to hit the fan, I'm hoping at 45, I could still pretend I'm okay or still cool, you know, or still cool enough to book 30 couples a year here in DC. Yeah. Like I always ask my clients like when their birthday is, you know, just like getting information, address, phone number, birthday. And the last few years you start seeing the 90s and I'm like, what? Like, what is happening? Like I'm 89, so I'm barely squeaking out.
Even like, dang man, mid 90s, like, whoa, hey. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's legit where, people are like, who's Bruno Mars? And I'm like, oh God, I thought Bruno Mars was new. But anyway. Yeah, I don't know. People don't talk enough about. And we don't have to make this episode about anything in particular. It's just about Mike, but you know,
there's
and his cool
way
Zoom,
better topics. I promise.
His cool Zoom setup, but I don't think a lot of photographers like we want to see if we can make it at this thing, and then we talk about what we talked about. We're making it. We're there. Yeah. You know, things are happening. We have reliable, at least, you know, leads coming in, all that jazz. Yeah. And then, you know, it's like, then we need to plan the end game. And I do feel like, at least amongst my peers, and even, you know, we have like a little Facebook group for the podcast listeners, stuff like that. Not a lot of people think about the end game. And I don't know if this is true for you. For me, if I had thought about it sooner, it would be easier to think about.
Yeah, I mean,
But
that's
now-
how it always goes, right?
Yeah. So now it's not sexy though, right? Like if I have a podcast that's like, hey, here's how to get 10,000 Instagram followers by the end of the year,
Yeah.
you know, it blows up. But if I'm like, hey guys, here's how to think about retirement.
Yeah.
Like nobody cares. Everybody's like, no, I'm not going to retire. Like, like I want to, let's talk about the R5. you
Right.
know?
Yeah. There's no 8K in retirement. What is that? Come on. Yeah.
Yeah. It's only the 401k.
Yeah,
baby.
exactly. Yeah. So, but you know, I feel you on that. And, I am personally not as ambitious as you. Like there's no chance I'm retiring by 45, man. I have terrible spending habits. I like way too many like old crappy cars to retire by 45. Yeah, I mean, just like there's just no corporate ladder to climb, right? Like, you can, if you make it to the top of our industry, like sure, you're probably selling presets and doing workshops, but there's no, you know, you're not going to like become the CEO of wedding photography. Like eventually, you know, the old white dude, for as much power as he has in every other industry, like eventually, you know, you're kind of back to bottom of the barrel, in my opinion, of when it comes to wedding photography. So, yeah.
I love that. That's quote of the week, Mike. If you ever get canceled, it's going to be by old white dudes. It's going to be from this podcast.
Man. Yeah, exactly.
I love this. So tell me, you know, I want to know just more about, you know, your work here, you know, in California.
Yeah.
Like, you know, what does that look like for you pre-COVID? You know, how many weddings would you take? And, you know, like, how are you, like, what's your goal when you're going to shoot a wedding? Like, what do you really like? I obviously I see the result, but how does Mike think about getting that result of that, like, colorful, punchy, but still very, at least in my mind, it's still very elegant. That's what I think about California. I'm like, oh, it still looks like California, but it's still elegant enough to like, okay, yeah, this is cool, but it's still punchy and colorful enough to be like, you know, Jason Vincent and I could be like, hey, we like Mike. Like Mike's cool, you know. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
That's very flattering. That's the general. That's kind of how I want my people to feel about my work. Is like, ooh, he's so elegant, but not that elegant. He's kind of punchy too. He's got like coolness to it. Like, no,
he's nice enough, but has style. Yeah,
that's very flattering. I'm glad to hear that. That is generally how I hope to be perceived. So it's good to hear that at least within already married East Coast people that it was not my general clientele, but it's good to hear that plays well. So I'm pretty low volume. I had a couple years where I did like, you know, the standard 30 weddings a year. And for me, I was just like, man, this is too many weddings. Like I said, that I feel like at 30 weddings, it doesn't really allow you to do much variety besides weddings, which, as we discussed before, I enjoy, like taking on the random commercial stuff, doing some cool travel stuff, or even corporate clients aren't necessarily incredibly fulfilling, but it just mixes things up for me and like kind of jogs that mental, like jogs me out of that mental lull that you get from just repeatedly doing the same thing over and over again. Even as different and unique as every wedding is, like you fall into that. There's the, you know, you establish your like pattern, which is awesome for productivity and awesome for like consistency and reliability. And like, then you get there and then you kind of like work your way up this pattern. And then all of a sudden, like, yeah, you have all that good that comes with it. But then, you know, it's like anything, you just kind of get too far into the zone. And then for me, at least there's not much else. I kind of get into a lull and start like twiddling my thumbs, and, you know, wedding 34 comes around for the year and I'm like, oh man, I just don't feel as inspired as I did back at wedding 14. So for me, I'm pretty low volume. I do usually about 15 weddings a year, maybe 20 on the heavy sides. And then the past few years, as you noted, I've actually been doing a lot of corporate events, which aren't like, you know, you're not necessarily creating any like next level, you know, you're not going to be famous on Instagram for shooting a corporate event probably. But a few things I appreciate about it are, one, from a emotional and human interaction standpoint, it's a nice, like, it's a good mellow to the highs, right? Like for me, it's all about balancing those highs with like more mellow moments, and weddings are so emotionally charged and beautiful and awesome. But A corporate event is there's usually less emotion attached to it. And so it's just a more, it's a place that you can kind of like, for me at least, recharge while still doing fun work that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like some of the corporate events I've shot have been really, really cool. They're in cool places, or they're doing cool events. There's like private concerts with whatever, Gwen Stefani, or listening to Tony Robbins speak, or there have been some really cool opportunities within those corporate events that I probably wouldn't really get in many other places. And so that has kind of crept its way into my portfolio. Of last year, I think it was like probably 40% of my work were corporate events. And so up until this year, that was like that. It's a good way to kind of keep fresh for me, but still bring in that variety,
Yeah. I think too, with corporate stuff, like there's a more well-defined like success and quality metric than shooting weddings. Yeah. Like if we shoot a wedding and we kind of do our jobs, what's a success? What's a win? Yeah. And it might be like, oh, a win is if they like their photos or their video, or a win is, further, at least for me, is like, oh, they refer me to a couple that successfully books, right? But like corporate event, they'll be like, hey, we just want to have 3,000 people show up. Yeah. We're at 2,950 right now, or hey, like you'll love this, because I feel like this is why I get hired to event stuff, or at least I like to pretend that this is why. All my corporate clients, I tell them, I'm like, guys, and I'm not even bashful about it. I'm like, my job is not to document the moments happening here. My job is not to story tell here. And they'll look at me kind of funny, usually the marketing or the communications people, and I'll say, guys, my job is to sell tickets. And they go, you get it. And I'm like, yeah.
Oh, you see the dollar symbols too. Okay. Yeah.
I'm like, my job is to put butts in seats for you. Oh, you've got some initiatives and things you want to show. Of course, because I want those people to buy from you. And once they know that you're like on the team, it's like, we'll pay you whatever you want. And I'm like, yes. Because I'm like, hey, I don't want to just be a hired photographer and just be like a guy that's like, hey, go do this or go do XYZ. Like, I want to be a part of the success of this, event or this brand or whatever, and see how it goes. So no, that's really cool. That makes sense. Yeah. What's that been like, COVID wise though? Like what?
Yeah, non-existent.
Especially in California
at all. Yeah. Period. Like, I mean, the past couple of weeks have been really, there's been a crazy turn the past few weeks, which we can talk about that in a little bit if you'd like. But I think in terms of COVID, the things I realized really quickly, and frankly, everyone probably did, is that corporate clients, like everything corporate, is just straight up canceled. There is zero possibility of any. I don't think I did a single corporate event this year after February I did Sundance, right? And then after that, nothing. And so, in general, like corporations can't take on the liability of doing an event, which totally makes sense. Yeah. They can usually eat the cost, the sunken cost they have in that event. Wedding clients, not quite as much, right? Like if you want to get married and you've been waiting 2 years to get married, like, again, you have all that emotional investment, you have that financial investment, like you're probably going to tweak your wedding in some way, even if it's just postponing it to make that happen. But like corporate holiday party, that's not happening no matter what this year. You're not going to postpone that, or like, So obviously, COVID, there's been zero corporate work. And so a lot of that for me has actually, I've made a push to try to transition more into commercial work, right? Of like, okay, so you guys aren't doing events this year, but what about, you need to sell a product, right? So what is your product photography? And even more so, what does your product cinematography look like? And that's my current push over the past few months, has been like, what sells well? Video. You know what people need? Video of their products. Because I feel like, especially over the summer, at least here in California, everyone in the wedding industry jumped from doing weddings to product photography, which totally makes sense. Obviously, like we can do that from our homes if we need to, for the most part. smaller. It's everyone's still online retail is a big thing. There are several retail industries that are still booming. And so like they still need to get their products online and visible, and they need marketing material. And so for me, I saw that happening really quickly, and I was like, well, screw photography. Every single wedding photographer is going to do that. And quite frankly, it's easy to take a nice photo of a product that you have all day with. Right. So I've been partnering with a few different people to actually provide video for their commercial work. And that's been, it hasn't taken off, but it does look promising. And I wouldn't be surprised if next year that ends up becoming a large portion of my business.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the people that can afford it will always need marketing, and it's weird, but they're like, okay, I imagine being in those commercials, if you're doing like an actual video, promo video or something like that, to where like a restaurant or electricians going in their house, very small commercial stuff where they're like, yeah, we need some shots of an electrician with a mask doing some homework.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like prepping the client in a nice, gentle way that is unassuming. Cause like every business now, their revenue is dependent on trust of people. And yeah, that might be different for like, a friend in Texas where it's like, hey, come on in, buddy, the water's fine. Whereas like you and I are in DC and California, we're like, please do not come in my house. Depending on your level of whatever. And that's an interesting thing to go about. But I think like ironically, it's interesting how safety, and we could talk politically about these companies, but like safety is the standard. Yeah. And then like anything else, if a client or a customer doesn't want to be safe, they can choose that. They can tell the electrician, hey, it's okay if you want to take off your mask or whatever. But the electrician at least is thinking like,
you started
I'm wearing
that
mask. Yeah, exactly. And like that's what we need to show. Like Starbucks has to show baristas wearing masks or hands and sanitizer. And at some level too, though, as a consumer, I'm like, we should have been doing this all the time.
I think there have been a lot of good takeaways this year that have been like, oh, maybe this should be just the standard from here on out. Pandemic or not, we should probably approach things in this way.
With airplanes will be like, we're wiping down the seats. You were like, we thought you were doing that already.
Right. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, for sure. And for me, again, that big push has been video because like, honestly, there are like some extraordinarily large companies who will totally just take a photo of their product and on their phone and post it online. And honestly, it looks pretty good. Like phones look good. As long as you have some nice window light, like that goes a long way. And so for me, that's something I kind of started that push a couple years ago back into video, which I guess I should talk about video history in a bit if you want. But
sure.
That's something I've been realizing a lot is like, as all of this technology, it's the same thing we've been talking about for 10 years, right? Like, ooh, technology is making photography more accessible and more people can take their own photos. And that's totally true. And there will always be a professional photography market, but I mean, like anything that kind of progresses, that will definitely shrink and get squeezed to the extreme ends of either high volume, low expense or extremely high end. And I think the middle market will get squeezed out of that eventually. But in terms of video, that's still a lot of work. Even if you just shoot the video on your phone, there's a big difference between like, cutting together a 15 or 30 second clip in editing software with decent camera stabilization and decent editing skills, sound design, that sort of thing, versus like just doing a quick TikTok video on your phone. And so I do think there's a lot to be said for video. And I think there's a way bigger gap in pretty much every video market than people realize. And so for me, that's something I have history with. That's something I have like the capability to do. And so I was like, yeah, let's move there. Let's go that way. And so that's been something that I've been pushing much harder this year because I see a lot of gaps in a lot of different markets that all you got to do is show up with a video camera and some editing software. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there, even right now.
Yeah. I feel like marketers, even outside of wedding photography, marketers like championed the idea that video was valuable. And I think some of it overshot. Like Facebook used to count a view as like 2 seconds of watching. And it came out and we're like, no, that doesn't count as a view in real life.
For sure.
That's not real. But at the same time, it is shifting, and you see even just Instagram, and you see Facebook or whatever.
Well,
and it's
reels are like, you can post a photo, or you can post that photo and just put music under it and post it as a reel, and like it'll do 15 times better as a reel than as a photo. Like they're all gamifying video content, and so they're all really, all the social media outlets are promoting that, right? And so it makes sense as a media business to promote that within our own offerings.
I'm going to try that right now, is like post a reel with one photo.
Yeah, see what happens.
Song.
I mean, I am not a good Instagrammer, so don't take my word for that. But like the people who I know who are good Instagrammers, like, that's like, dude, I get way, way better response on my videos, whether that's reel, stories, posts, like videos go way, except for IGTV. That thing, dang, man, come on. Anyway, everyone else is incentivizing videos. It's a good time for me to bring that up to clients and tell them like, hey, you should look into videos because they're doing better. And also, what do you know? I can do video. Here you go. So, one of my most recent clients, actually, I'm doing like product photography for them. And I was like, I'm going to do a couple quick videos for you. They're literally like 15-second videos in like Instagram 5x4 format. And they were super, super simple, and they like blew the clients' minds, and just cause they can take very similar product photos on their phone. They're not quite at the level as a professional photographer, which is why we have jobs, but like those videos, like they're so far outside their capability, even though it's so basic for us. Or at least I actually don't know if you do video work, but for me, like it's like super, it's not,
this is it.
Not crazy.
My Zoom call's my only video.
If you know how to like pick up a camera, you can do these videos. And it like blew them away, and they're like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, yeah, man, we're good to go now. Like they're all about it. And so, there's a lot to be said.
That's an interesting take, man. I think like it might be valuable. So, I mean, I think everything you say is valuable because I already like you so much, but and
a lot of people don't share that opinion.
I've just been a stalker for so long, but yeah, man, like transitioning or adding video to your portfolio, to your package as something that you do, like that's valuable. I think that's awesome. I think that's really cool. What, I mean, step by step for people listening, like, what would you think they could do now if they're fresh? They have nothing. They've never even been to a corporate event or done a product session or like taken a photo of a plate. Like whoever needs that video. Like, what should they do? Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you've discussed this with any number of photographers here, but the thing that I've seen and realized over the years is like you can only sell what you shoot. Right. Like if you want to start doing product photography, but you don't have any product photography to show, you're not doing any product photography. You're not getting paid for that. That's end of story. Like maybe you'll have someone that takes a chance on you, but really that's not going to happen. And so it's a lot of free work. And so I think that this is something that gets missed, especially within the wedding industry, is like something I had to realize a few years ago. I'm sorry, I'm going to back up a lot. So
take your time, Mike.
So probably like 2015 or so, I kind of was jumping back into wedding photography, as that being the main portion of my business, coming out of more travel and editorial photography. And I was like, man, if I get back in the wedding industry hard, like I want to be high end. I don't want to do like the mid-range stuff I had been doing before. And so like, even within the wedding industry, like, I had thousands of wedding photos to show, and they were, in my opinion, like great. They represented my work well, but like those weddings didn't look like high-end weddings. Like, to me, my photography style looked high-end, but the content of those photos did not. And like, that's, as photographers, I think a lot of times, at least for me, especially, like I get my head in the weeds of like, no, this lighting is like so beautiful and glamorous, and like my edits are crisp and clean. And they're like, yeah, but dude, that's a $200 wedding dress. Like, yeah, but like the rest of the photo looks high. And they're like, yeah, but those are some shoes from Kohl's, you know, and that's totally fine. That's like a great market to be in. But if you don't want to be in that market, you have to start showing things that are in your market. And so, yeah, for high-end weddings, like, man, that name brand dress and shoes, those matter. And clients and planners will notice if that doesn't line up with what you're trying to sell. So like, I had to do a bunch of styled shoots where I partnered with bridal salons and was like, hey, give me these high-end dresses and let's shoot some bridal portraits with these. And the same with like, even just being more particular in what I was showing. Maybe I really enjoyed this photo from a lower end venue, but now I'm going to post this one that artistically isn't as great, but man, it's at the Ritz and this wedding looks awesome. So, bringing that all the way back around to corporate and commercial stuff of like, yeah, you can, as photographers, we're able to extrapolate like, no, we are able to shoot this in difficult lighting and it looks great and our edits are clean and we can extrapolate that, but the client can't. They just see, they see, you know, a photo of a mug and they have no clue what that has to do with their bicycle, right? They're like, that's, what does that have to do with this? Like, you're like, no, look, you can apply these same lighting and composition characteristics to both. And like, they don't know, they don't see that. And so if you want to shoot a bicycle, you got to go shoot a bicycle, you know? And more importantly, like if you want to shoot a high end, super awesome boutique carbon bike company, like you better start shooting high end boutique carbon bikes, not like your friend's beach cruiser. Right. And that's honestly where most of the work I think comes in, is like not just shooting over and over again, but finding the right things to shoot that really fit your specific vision. And so to start off with, I always say like, it's better to shoot the right stuff for free than the wrong stuff for chump change. And so like, that's something I try to like, I try to do is like, well, if I really want to break into a market, I want to partner with the right kind of people in that market and start shooting the right kind of products for that market. And so, you know, right now, my buddy and I are trying to really make a big push into doing media content for like the off-road vehicle market. And so like, that's awesome. Yeah, it'd be easy to like get my buddy's old Forerunner and just go take some photos of that out in the desert. And that'd probably be a good start, but like, no, we're going to start with like this company that like is making really awesome, high quality off-road parts. And, you know, we're not getting our level of desired income from that, but it's better to have that in our portfolio than something that doesn't appear high end in that market to the people who know what they're looking for.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. No, totally. It's like the difference between it's a weird thing. I think I don't know about you, but I'm like on the edge of the luxury market here in DC, you know, and there's I've talked to buddies about it and they're like, Adam, there's no other guys doing it in DC. You could be the fancy luxury guy. Yeah. And I'm like, that does not sound attractive to me at all, you know? But at the same time, I do shoot, you know, some luxury weddings often. And it's a weird world because at least for me, I didn't grow up that way. Right. So I don't know about the fancy dress or I don't know about the fancy shoes or different customs and stuff like that. And so that part is hard to like, for you to even have that wisdom of, I think I'm going to shoot a higher end, you know, off-road vehicle because this is something I want to like dive into. Yeah. That takes like, it just shows that you're not lazy, which is again like why we all love Mike. But
no, like it shows that I've made all those mistakes before. I just have 10 years of mistakes that have led up to this perceived wisdom. You know.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's like what I want to round this out with is like the idea of, you know, I love shooting for free and shooting what you want to shoot for free. And like some of my background was like I toured in a band and then I brought my camera with me, and I sucked. I was awful at photography. But I had a backstage pass to everything, to every band, big, small, whatever. And I shot every single one, from the tiny, bar bruisers at the beginning to the headliners, with platinum albums. And, I made everybody look like they were a platinum artist, or shot, and only showed, I curated, right? Like I'd rather have one strong photo than 10, 6 out of 10s, 6 weak photos. And people don't talk about that too much, but it's like, guys, like you probably already have some good work.
Yeah.
If you hide the mediocre work, it'll make you look like you have all the great work. Yeah. And it's not deceitful. It's the idea of, hey, with proper conditions that I would love to educate you on, I can execute this for you, client, Yeah. And I don't know, man. People,
sorry. It's not just that, but it's like, it's showing not just only good work, but only good work that you want more of. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
also that. Yeah.
Again, like I only show weddings that look high end now. Right. So I don't shoot every single wedding again at the Ritz or Montage or like these insane beach resorts. Like I have some that are like in very kind of normal looking, like normal mid-range, mid-market venues. And those clients are still paying me the same money as my high-end clients, which is super awesome. Like they just value photography more. It makes up a bigger chunk of their budget. But when it comes to post photos of their weddings, I'm probably going to focus less on their venue and more on like the journalistic side of things and things that, again, I can help make look like the high-end expectation that I've set for those clients. So that is, to me, that's really been one of the key things in terms of building my business in the right pocket that I want it to be in.
Yeah, no, that's the samurai way, if you will. That it seems like. Yeah, I think if you want to move markets or change something or get into something, it's nobody wants to work for free, but it's obvious that like it works. Yeah. Like I know it sounds so dumb, but in a capitalistic society, there's always going to be somebody who needs, marketing, and you're like, hey, I'd love to offer you that marketing and for free. Yeah. And they go, duh. Like any smart business, if somebody came to me and they're like, Adam, I have a high quality product and that you need, I'll give it to you for free. Like I'm still looking for a podcast editor. Years in,
I would argue too. I mean, this is probably less wise, but I would argue too that it's better to do something for free than something discounted. A lot of times, in terms of like, if you approach a company, like I would much rather offer this company one free shoot than being like, oh, I'll do this for you for half price. Because then that price is built into their mindset forever, right? Like then you are, if you do a shoot for $500, you are a $500 photographer. I've made that mistake over and over and over again. And that's something I've learned a lot the hard way and will probably continue to learn the hard way. But it would have been way better to do that shoot for free, gain their trust, and then come back and be like, all right, cool. Now it's $2,000 or whatever, like that's, there's a lot of power in free if you are the one setting the terms.
Yeah. One trick I've heard from other people. Do you know who Sean West is? He's not a photographer, but he's like a media.
No, I don't think I do actually.
He's got a good freelancer podcast. I think you would dig it. He's a cool guy. Well designed, like good design stuff. He's a high, he has good taste. We'll put it that way. And I think you would like him. But one of the things he talks about, he has a course on like value-based pricing. But something he does even when working for free is he still sends them an invoice.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. You send that invoice and you zero it out and you say like, here's what it would cost and here's what you're paying, which is nothing. Just so they know, just so they can see it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, hey, when you're planning for next year, include me. It's $15K, $30K, $100K, whatever. Yeah. And then they can go, oh yeah. And also too, they know what value they're getting. Yeah. So hopefully they don't treat you like a scrub, which, most
that goes either way sometimes, but Yeah,
exactly.
I feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a good thing. I love that, man. I didn't even expect for us to talk about that, and I think that's so crucial. During COVID, I was like, what was a good practical thing that I feel like Mike would have some wisdom on? And it's like, if you want to level up or level out into something else, there are ways to do that, and kind of the opportunity, like we talked about, at least for photographers, like you probably have a camera that does good video.
Yeah.
Do the same stuff you would do if you were shooting portraits. Like, look for good light.
Yeah.
Take your time. Press the button. Move with it. I think movement's probably the newest thing for a lot of photographers. If for video, But if
honestly, I would say just lock it off, dude. There's a lot of power in the tripod. Like,
yeah,
right?
That's what she said.
Like, as photographer, I don't know. Like, as photographers, we know all this stuff. We know the lighting. We know the composition. We know like how to create compelling images. Literally, just put movement on it. Make it a photo. But then like put your hand in it and just set it down, or like literally again, it can be so simple. And I think that stuff is playing really well right now. And that's something that I intend to do a lot more of. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I think that's, it's undervalued right now. And it's like, guys, it's time to hop in there. That's smart too. I always think about the movement's hard, but you're totally right. Hey, you can have the background or the actor moving.
Yeah, dude, there's so many different elements to video that like gimbals are sexy, but man, you don't always have to be flying everywhere. Just stick it on a tripod. And
it's true. We were filming a video like 3 or 4 weeks ago for something we're doing next year. And the video guy, it's super awesome guy, Brady Clayton. He was on a gimbal the whole time.
Yeah.
Like we shot for 3.5 days straight, and he was on the Ronin or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was great. But the dude was tired at the end of every day too. And like, I joked with him. I was like, hey, do your shots look better in the morning when you're like strongest? And then do they look weakest by the end of the day? And he was like, maybe. I was like, well, if I can tell, I'm going to let you know.
Awesome.
Be like, if you're sending me some weak sauce, I'm going to be like, you got to fly back out here. I love that, man. Well, no, I feel like that's a good message, especially for this time, depending on when this episode drops, probably this month or next. I think it's important for people to think about like, all right, what can I do with the tools I already have that doesn't cost me necessarily money to try and generate some more income? And right now, like for weddings, events are still in a weird spot if you put it, no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
And restaurants, commercial. I always think restaurants. I'm like, hey, just write down 10 restaurants you want to shoot content for.
Yeah, man.
That's like my basic, person kind of thing. And they could be restaurants you like eating at and be like, hey, I want to make a cool video.
Yeah,
and be like,
they'll give you a meal if you make a video for them, dude. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not? And usually get to eat what you shoot.
Yeah.
And just don't eat it all in public because they'll think you're a fatty like me. So, but yeah, so I love that, man. That's good advice, I think, for people watching this stuff. Where can people go to get more, Mike? And is there anything else exciting you have going on this year, or anything you're pumped about? I know it's hard to find something.
Yeah.
You have a white Christmas tree, which is cool.
Say that again.
You have a white Christmas tree, which is cool.
Okay. Fun fact, confession. My neighbors just gave this to me. They're like, we got a new Christmas tree. As you can see, this one doesn't actually light up. It's like missing. So they're like,
yeah,
we're going to throw this out. Do you want it? I was like, yeah, it'll make a great background on the podcast. And so I like set it up last night. Like,
that's awesome.
Okay, here we go. Christmas background. But hopefully those will actually work. Anyway, more of me. You can always find me on pretty much every social media outlet at Villa Visuals. It's VILLA. In terms of things I'm excited about, I have a project that I've been working on that I was really hoping to have ready to go for this podcast, but I'm not sure I can announce it just yet.
You don't have to talk about it. It's okay. We can keep it secret for now.
Yeah, but it will be targeting wedding professionals and photographers. And
oh,
it
that's
is not
awesome.
a workshop or presets, I promise.
Yeah. Please, God, no.
Yeah. But I don't know. It'll be on my social medias, hopefully within the next month here. So
awesome. Which at least for, like you said, is Villa Visuals,
Villa
right?
Visuals.
VILLA.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. That's the best spot. I feel like I've been a huge fan for 3 years, just following you. You are one of those people, Mike, that hopefully you don't lose sleep over this every night. I don't think your social media reflects as good as you are, and that upsets me. That's 100% why people I bring on the podcast. That's like, you deserve a million followers.
That's Mike. Something I need to. That's always the challenge, right? That's the struggle of social media. So
yeah, hopefully
I can live up to the hype there.
I love it. Awesome, man. Thanks so much for coming on, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh man, so good. I want to talk to Mike, for like 10 hours. And that's why this episode was just like, I want to talk to him about everything. And he's just a very interesting guy, has tons of depth. And I think it was funny, we were kind of battling over our Zoom looks to see who had the best one, because we both use like professional camera setups, so pretty funny. But yeah, if you like the episode, do us a favor, rate us, give us a 5-star rating in Apple Podcasts. It really helps us. Leave a little review, tell us what you thought. It really, really does help. I didn't know when we first started, and we've been penalized for it. It really helps. So super easy, free, takes a second. Subscribe if you haven't already. We would love to give you content every week. That's what we do. And also, too, if you haven't joined the Facebook group, seriously, free content, free workshops every month. Come hang out, togfb.com. And last but not least, if you really like the show or you just want to say hey to me over on Instagram, you can follow me at Mason Photography, MASON Photography. Love to say hey, always in the DMs, commenting, helping out people. Let me know if I can help in any way. Have a wonderful day, guys. Keep being awesome.